You've waited for the text. You've reread the last conversation. You've told yourself it means something, and then told yourself it means nothing, and then checked again just to be sure. And none of that waiting gave you clarity, because you were trying to decode a message that was never meant to be decoded. Because breadcrumbing doesn't end when someone finally gets consistent. It ends when one specific type of person decides they are no longer available to be fed crumbs. At first, it feels like potential. A text out of nowhere after days of silence. A moment of warmth so real you think, this is it. This is who they actually are. Then nothing. You wait. Another crumb arrives. You feel relief. Then the silence comes back. You wonder if you said something wrong. Another message. You soften. They disappear again. And somewhere in the middle of that loop, you stop asking whether this is enough and start asking what you can do to make it more. That shift, that quiet, barely noticeable shift, is where the breadcrumbing takes hold. And the person keeping that loop alive? It's probably you. Not because you're naive. Not because you don't see what's happening. But because you see it so clearly. You feel every shift, every half-gesture connection. And you still believe that if you just respond in exactly the right way, something will finally change. That specific kind of hope is not a weakness. In most areas of life, it's what makes you extraordinary. But inside a breadcrumbing dynamic, it is the exact fuel that keeps the cycle running. Research from the University of Toronto found that individuals with higher empathic sensitivity are significantly more likely to interpret ambiguous social signals as meaningful and intentional. In plain terms, the more emotionally attuned you are, the more likely you are to find depth in something that is none. You're not imagining the connection. You're just built to locate it in places where it was never fully planted. I see this constantly with the people I work with. Emotionally intelligent, self-aware people. People who have done the inner work, who can articulate exactly what breadcrumbing is, who can see the pattern with total precision, still checking their phone at midnight, still replaying a 3-word message looking for something warmer underneath it. Not because they're foolish, but because understanding a trap and being free of it are two completely different things. Knowledge alone doesn't create distance from a pattern. Only a specific kind of internal decision does. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why secure people don't just tolerate breadcrumbing differently. They respond to it in a way that makes it functionally impossible to continue. And more importantly, you'll understand the one internal shift that doesn't just reduce your reaction to breadcrumbing, but makes you genuinely unresponsive to it. So let's get clear on what breadcrumbing actually is, because most people misread it. They see it as someone who is confused or emotionally unavailable or just bad at communication. But it follows a very specific logic every single time. There is just enough contact to maintain your attention, then enough silence to create anxiety. That anxiety makes you more focused on them, not less. Their next message lands in a system that is already primed to receive it, gratefully, eagerly, with more weight than it deserves. Your response signals that the line is still open, and the loop resets. This isn't carelessness. This is an engagement pattern that runs on your unresolved hoping, and it will keep running for exactly as long as someone is on the other end, hoping. Now, let's talk about why secure people respond to this so differently, and why their response is so hard to replicate without actually becoming it. A secure person isn't just someone with better boundaries. It's something more internal than that. Secure people have a stable enough sense of self that external inconsistency doesn't destabilize them. They don't need ambiguity resolved, because their inner state doesn't hinge on the resolution. They read the crumb for what it is, not what it could mean, not what it might signal about the future, just what it actually is. And what it actually is, to them, is information, not an invitation, not a test they need to pass. Just data about who this person is right now. That read, that flat, unromantic clarity, is the entry point to everything that follows. That's where breadcrumbing loses its grip. Here is what makes this so much harder a fake than people realize. Most people try to respond to breadcrumbing by suppressing their reaction, by playing it cool, by waiting longer to reply, by performing disinterest they don't actually feel. And the breadcrumber, consciously or not, always senses a performance, because suppressed desire still reads as desire. It still signals availability. It still tells the other person's nervous system that the line is live. Real security doesn't suppress the pull. It genuinely doesn't feel the same way because it's rooted in something the breadcrumber cannot offer and therefore cannot threaten. A secure person's sense of value doesn't go up when the text arrives, and it doesn't go down when it doesn't. And that internal flatness, that quiet, unimpressed stability, is the one thing a breadcrumbing dynamic has absolutely no mechanism for. But here's the part that almost nobody talks about, and it changes everything once you see it. It is not detachment alone that makes a secure person immune to breadcrumbing. What makes them immune is that their detachment is built on a foundation of radical self-prioritization. They are not detached because they feel less. They are detached because they have made a genuine internal decision about what they are and are not available for. And they made that decision before the crumb arrived. The secure person doesn't evaluate the breadcrumb in the moment. They already evaluated it in advance. That's the shift, not a reaction, a prior commitment to themselves. So here is how the secure response actually works. Not by ignoring the message, not by crafting a perfectly measured reply designed to signal aloofness. It works by genuine indifference to the outcome, which only becomes possible once you decided that a relationship requiring you to survive on partial contact is not a relationship you're interested in having. When you respond from that place, or choose not to respond at all from that place, something happens on the other end that unpredictable pursuit never triggers. There is no anxiety in your energy to feed off. There is no reward signal in your engagement. The mechanism that makes breadcrumbing work, your escalating need for resolution, is simply absent, and without it, the pattern has nowhere to go. What happens next follows one of two directions, and both of them are exits. The first is recalibration. The person doing the breadcrumbing, suddenly without the usual feedback loop, either shows up with something real, actual presence, actual consistency, actual investment, or they reveal that they were never capable of it. Either way, you have your answer. The second outcome is silence. They move on to someone whose system still responds to the crumb, and that exit, as uncomfortable as it feels in the moment, is the clearest possible evidence that you were never being offered something worth having. Either way, the dynamic ends. Either way, you are no longer inside it. Here is what needs to be said directly, because it gets confused with something else. You don't respond to breadcrumbing like a secure person because you've given up on love, or because you've built walls, or because you no longer feel the pull of connection. You do it because you have developed the specific capacity to feel the pull, to notice the crumb, to register its warmth, and to not let it override what you already know about what you need. That is not numbness. That is the most precise form of self-knowledge there is. And it is the only response that breadcrumbing genuinely cannot survive. Secure people don't become immune to breadcrumbing by wanting connection less. They become immune by deciding, quietly and completely, that they want real connection more. The shift was never about the person sending the crumbs. It was about the moment you stopped